Hi, this is Chris Park from Arkin Games. This is a tutorial for Quinn, plus anybody else who wants to update the GUI in AI War 2. Some of the stuff you can do directly from XML, but some of the things you need to update the asset bundle for. And in order to do that, it's a little bit opaque if you don't know the magic steps. So here are the magic steps. First of all, you have to have the right version of Unity, which at the moment is 2018.2. The release build of that. So you hit open on this screen and then go into wherever your AI War 2 install folder is. If it's an SVN, that's fine, but also you can do it with the release build of the game if you're not Quinn. You go to the AIW2 modding and GUI folder and hit select folder, and that will open the project. It'll take a little while the first time, and then you'll see this screen. I already had it open, so I'm not opening it again. This point, under the Arkin UI assets folder, there are a variety of UI scenes that I have set up. You can create your own if you want to, just by hitting save scene as from the existing folder, saving into Arkin UI and saving it as Bob's scene, Quinn's scene, whatever. There's a under UI, under whatever the scene is called, there's a canvas and a positioner panel, and then that is really useful because you can drag. If you hit settings window and then hit select, for instance, then it'll take you to where the prefab is, which these are all in custom UIs. I can just drag any particular item under the positioner panel there, and then I can see what's going on with it. Now, this is the main game view, which shows what it'll look like in the runtime mode. As you can see, I can drag this over separately and then double click this in the scene view, and I can hold the right mouse button and use WSAD and Q and E to move around and shift to go faster. And you can then see the actual extents of where things are. You can also click things directly and get down in better. If you hit Control D, you can make copies, and you can select things as a group on the sidebar, and then you can drag them together, which is really handy. If you are dragging things up here, you just would grab the handle and drag it that way. The handle being where it turns into a little cursor right up there. You can drag all those things. But if I select all three of these things and drag, that works for width, but it doesn't work for position because it sets all the values to be the exact same thing. So for position, instead of moving them together as one, it puts them on the exact same spot, versus for height, since that number would be the exact same thing, it works out just fine. And for width, same deal. So two different uses there with that. If you don't see these particular handles, hit W. If you want the rotation, hit E, and you can go on specific axes or like that. And then R gives you the scaling like this. It's worth noting that when you scale, it is scaling here instead of scaling, and I just realized I don't have my mouse cursor being shown. When you scale, it's scaling here instead of scaling the actual width and the height up there. It doesn't make any difference really, but it can be confusing. So a lot of times you want to adjust the width and the height instead. You can see that my cursor now, what it's actually doing. All right, you can just click on the top, or really any part of it that is the original prefab, and hit revert, and it will go back to the way that it was. If you want to save the prefab, just hit apply. You can drag and put it back on top of itself, but there's a chance that it will do something weird instead. So I wouldn't really recommend that. Just hit apply. That's the normal workflow. Or revert if you want to undo. Once you've made whatever changes, go to the Arkin build folder. You can choose to hit delete existing asset bundles if you want first. It's up to you. Then hit build whatever your platform is, and then you'll be able to see what's there. It'll take 1 or 2 minutes depending on how fast your machine is and how much cache it has to build back up. If it's all very freshly cached, it can take as little as 10 seconds. Um, if for some reason the things you thought you were doing don't actually show up across, then that's bad cache, and just hit delete existing UI bundles. That'll clear the cache, hit build, and you're good to go. Now, none of this is addressed how to actually make a new or how to make a UI window change. So let's get the load game window, drag this in here. Now, at this point, I'm just going to work with the game window since I can see this just fine. So if I want to add another button, it's you really don't want to go adding a button from scratch. That will almost all, or a text box or anything else, it'll not be formatted right. So if you don't have a text box or something in here, then you should go find a scene that's properly formatted that does. So load quick start window does have one. So I drag this onto the positioner panel so it'll position right. And I can click in here, and I see in the footer row there's a text box. So correct way to get a text box out of here would be to hit Control D, makes a copy. You can't tell because it's right there. And then I can drag this into, say, just the root load game window. Now this is behind the quick start window, so you can't even see it. I'll delete the quick start window out. Now you can see I've got a text box here, and I can position this relative to the whole parent or relative to the footer row if I want to do that. And you would want to not eyeball lining up of it. You'd want to actually use the positions of these things when we're talking about a button. So, however, if you're just adding a label or something, then this is really all you have to do. Like I can take header text 3 here, duplicate that. I'll just move it around a little bit, and then I will just drag the X thing there, and I can just write, Chris's extra text, and I'm done. That's it. Now there is new text that shows up there. However, that's non-functional text. Like it just shows. It doesn't have any sort of back end that populates the text. The code can't find it. It's not a button you can click. There's no mouse over. None of that stuff. If I wanted to have it be text that gets dynamically populated, I would need to give it a controller name that is unique. So I could give it like T Chris extra text, and then you would go to the related class in the AIWare external code. So in this particular case, under UIs, that is window UIs in-game passive display. Actually, this is main menu, isn't it? No, it's just right down here. Load game menu. I had that in a separate window before, so that's why it's showing up this way. All right, so I come in here. Now I'm inside this overall class window load game menu, and then that's when I add a secondary class. So these all have prefixes, like good old Visual Basic or similar, to indicate what kind of class they are. So B for button, I for input, etc. And custom parent is something else, which is not outside this, which is outside the scope of this right now. If I'm just adding text, let's see here. Trying to think of one that actually has some dynamic text. The save menu has one. So you can type in here on the sidebar and find things that are have that word in the title or in the method name. Window save game right there. So just click that and then clear the save. All right. So in here, I've got B for B sort, B save game. Those are buttons. And there is a T campaign name in here somewhere rather. campaign name. There we go. So we got our public class T campaign name. So we just copy this over to the load game menu. It needs to be a direct child class of the parent load game menu class. I would make this name match. So it needs to be matching on case as well. So Chris extra text. And then here, this would actually populate the text with whatever I want. This would let me do any sort of other logic if I wanted to. You can type public override and then hit space in order to give you the other ones that you can put in there. So get should be hidden is a good one. And there is a handle mouse over, which is really relevant a lot of times if I wanted to give it a mouse over. So if I wanted to add a new text one, that's how I would do that. Almost. There's still one missing step. It's not going to call that, and you're going to be wondering why it's not calling it. So at this point, I would take header text 3, which I should really rename to Chris extra text. Now I click to the parent load game menu. This has an Arkin custom UI on it. It has elements with names embedded right here. Now that is the thing that the custom UI gets called from the central UI loop, and then it runs a sub loop on each of the items in here. If they're not in here, then they don't get run on. Now it's actually more complicated than that because some of these are just like the campaign button that's this thing. Some of these things actually get duplicated, and so we actually have a bunch of campaigns and a bunch of saves that get duplicated. They get cloned off of where they are, and so it still runs on the clones. But in terms of all of the things that it's going to find and do something with, we have to have them in here. To get it in here, you drag it over here. So first of all, if you accidentally just click this, then the sidebar changes. So you have to actually click the parent and then click and hold and drag it over to elements with names embedded on the title, not on the side here, and let it go, and it'll just put it in element number 5. If you've got 3 different things to add, then you can drag them all at once if you want to. Then you would hit apply, and it would and then build, and it would actually be something that goes there. So to get rid of these things, because I don't care about them, if I wanted to make a button delete, then I would just copy button back, Control D, and then move the position X over somewhere that makes sense. Click into this, make the text say delete instead of back. If I want the text to not pull from what is it called? I'm going to get rid of this text class because I don't actually need it. We got our B save game. No, not that. We want our B here. B cancel. That works. Get text to show from volatile. We want to be populating that every frame because it can change. Then we would use this. If we don't care, then we can come in here and uncheck use get text to show from, I forget what it fully says, but from any thread. Yeah. So if we just know it's always going to say delete, then we can just do that. Renaming it to button back, to button delete up here is just a convenience. It doesn't actually mean anything. Renaming it right here to button to be delete means that it will call the be delete class that we would create on the back end. Except, as you now know, it's not actually going to do that. So I can get rid of this because I said don't call it from that. And so I've got a mouse over if I want to, on update if I need to do something. In here I can say, delete, delete the save that I clicked next, and actually have it do that logic. Incidentally, if you need to reference the parent class, the way that you would do that is by calling the name of the parent class dot instance. So name of the parent class dot instance dot whatever you want on there. So if I need to make a variable out here, public delete thing I click, I can do that, and I can say here delete thing next thing I click is toggled. This actually is a great example of when it would be a good idea to actually have it do this, get the text from volatile, because we could say if I'm in the delete mode, then say in delete mode now, or I can say otherwise click to delete. That's not really what I would say, but it works out. Then I choose whichever one is longer, and I can test how it's going to look instantly in here by pasting it, and I can see that is getting cropped. So at this point, go into button delete, make it a little bit wider. If I'm not pleased with it getting bigger from the middle, because I know I want it to go that way, then I can come in here in the anchor for X, or not anchor, pivot. For X, I just hit 0, and that makes it start basically the point from which it sizes is now over there. So now I can hit this, get it sized exactly the way I want. It's still positioned exactly how I want. I need to go back and get text from volatile back on. What did I forget? I forgot this, which now if I do this, it's going to add another entry, but oops, I've got 2 null entries here, which is going to be a big problem. So actually what I want to do is drag it there, and then instead of size 7, I want it to be size 1 more than that. So size 5, size 1 more than the last element number, because it's 0 indexed. And so if I hit apply and so forth, I'd now have a button that I can click to go into delete mode. And then what I would assumedly do is make it so that whenever I click on B save game, which is one of these, so go into delete mode and then click a particular save game, then we would say it's already checking to see if it's null, but then say if we're in the save game, if we're in the delete mode, then do some stuff, otherwise do the usual stuff. And there's a great example of how to handle pop-ups that are modal here. So you want to make sure they're doing the right one. So we can say like do delete, and we would make a public void do delete and do the actual deletion. You cannot make any parameters for it because it's a specific type of thing, delegate. So you'd say like delete this save game, and we'd say, are you sure you want to delete the save game? And you would say, what is the actual save? This.save.save name. And say, you can hit the comma here. So this is the yes button text. Are you sure you want to delete this? Delete it, or yes, or whatever, and then go back. But yeah, being explicit is nice. So they know I'm clicking the delete button, and then you actually do the deletion there. And that would be pretty much it. So that's a longer tutorial than I meant it to be, but now the mystery of how to add buttons and stuff and actually have them do something is no longer a mystery. Thanks for watching.